The wind howled through the cemetery like a whisper of secrets long buried. Billionaire Richard Hale stepped out of his black limousine, his cane tapping against the stone path. His custom-made suit clung to his tall frame, but no amount of fabric or fortune could soften the chill in the air, or the one that gripped his heart. Today marked 5 years since the car crash that took his only son. Michael Richard rarely visited the grave. Business, boardrooms, and billion-dollar deals had kept him away, but guilt was a persistent echo that refused to be silenced. The older he got, the louder it grew. He had built an empire from nothing, but in doing so, he'd neglected the one thing money couldn't replace: time with his son. As he approached the marble headstone, he saw something unexpected. A young woman, no older than 30, knelt before the grave. Her shoulders trembled with quiet sobs. One hand clutching a bouquet of fresh sunflowers, the other resting gently on the back of a little boy, no older than 4. Richard's steps halted. For a moment he thought he had the wrong grave. But then, the name Michael James Hale etched into the stone glared back at him. The woman looked up.
Oh.
Startled by the sound of his footsteps, her eyes were red and puffy, her hair tied back in a messy ponytail. The boy turned too, clutching a toy airplane in his hand, the same model Richard had given Michael on his 10th birthday. "Who are you?" Out, hesked, his voice steady, but low. The woman hesitated, eyes wide with recognition. I didn't know anyone else would be here today." "I asked you a question," Richard said, softer now. "Are you? And why are you crying at my son's grave?" The woman stood slowly. "My name is Lily. I used to work at that diner on 52nd Street. Michael came in every week." Richard furrowed his brow. "It was years ago, yes," Lily said. "We dated for a while, then he left. I didn't hear from him again."
Nice.
Richard's heart pounded. "Why didn't he tell me about you?" She looked down. "I think he was afraid you wouldn't approve of someone like me, a waitress, a nobody." Richard's jaw tightened. "The boy." She glanced at the child, then back at Richard. "His name is Caleb. He's Michael's son." Time stopped. The billionaire stared at the child, those same hazel eyes, the same unruly brown hair. The resemblance was undeniable. But more than the features, it was the curiosity in the boy's eyes, the quiet intensity. It was Michael, all over again. Richard stumbled back a step, breath caught in his chest. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I tried," she said, tears threatening again. "I wrote letters. I called the foundation. I even came to your offices. I was turned away every time." Richard thought of his assistants, his security staff, the maze of filters that had kept distractions far from his inner circle. It had worked well for business, but at what cost? He sank onto the stone bench near the grave, cane resting at his side. The wind rustled the trees above as silence settled between them. Lily knelt beside Caleb and whispered something in his ear. The boy walked over cautiously and stood in front of Richard. "Hi," he said. Richard's throat tightened. "Hi, are you?" "My grandpa." Wasn't a question Richard had expected to hear in his lifetime. He looked into the boy's hopeful eyes and felt something shift inside him. Something he hadn't allowed himself to feel since Michael died. "Yes," he said finally, voice cracking. "Yes, I am." Caleb smiled and held out the toy plane. "Daddy said this could fly higher than anything." Richard took the toy with trembling hands, remembering the night he gave it to Michael. How they lay in the backyard staring up at the stars, dreaming of flying. "I gave one just like this to your daddy," he said. He loved it. The silence that followed wasn't awkward, it was sacred. Over the next hour, Lily told Richard about the struggles she'd faced raising Caleb alone while working double shifts. The medical bills from Caleb's asthma, the eviction notice they'd received just last week. She never wanted money from Richard, she said. Only for Caleb to know where he came from. To know his father's name? Richard listened. Really listened. For the first time in years. And when Lily finished, he did something he hadn't done in a decade. He cried. Not the polite, silent tears of grief buried under wealth and pride, but the soul-wrenching sobs of a man who had lost everything that mattered and was now being handed a second chance. I can help, he said. If you'll let me? Lily looked hesitant. I'm not asking for, I know, Richard interrupted. Gently. But I'm offering not just money, time, presence, a family. She nodded slowly, still unsure, but open. In the weeks that followed, Richard made changes. He stepped back from the company, set up a trust for Caleb, and bought Lily and the boy a home in a quiet neighborhood close to his own. He hired a private tutor for Caleb, and on weekends, the three of them would fly kites or build model airplanes. Richard even started visiting schools and shelters, funding programs in Michael's name. It wasn't about guilt anymore. It was about legacy, about healing, about love. The grave still stood at the edge of the cemetery, but it was no longer a place of sorrow. It had become a point of rebirth. One spring morning, Caleb tugged on Richard's sleeve as they stood near the stone. "Grandpa," he said, "do you think Daddy can see us?" Richard smiled, brushing a hand over the boy's hair. "I think he's right here with us, kiddo. Every step of the way." Final message. No amount of money can buy back lost time, but love, when found again, can heal even the deepest wounds. Richard Hale spent his life chasing wealth, only to discover that true richness lies in connection, redemption, and the bonds we build, even after loss. Second chance may not undo the past, but it can light a path toward a better future.